No, next week is. You're the one who's wanting to get an education, not me.
No, that's exactly. We come back
There's a bit of context around I didn't just mark this. Okay, I'm gonna have to go get that. But as we say, so what we want to do today is cover a little bit more about I can't hear you.
Are we doing revision or
Revision or more content? No, more content. Well, so let's cover a little bit more about project networks. And because I covered that with the other sections, I don't think we did it here. It's easy to do. And then I thought we could talk about your projects coming along, because you're presenting them next week. Those are the main things. I haven't graded much of the assignments yet, because it was graded into 2 weeks. If you like, at the end of class, I'll show you some pictures of where I was and what was happening there. It was very, very interesting study international. So, right. One of the things we haven't talked about so much is in project planning, when you're making up your project plan, we talked a bit about a Gantt chart. What do you remember about a Gantt chart?
Possibly, like, the chart shows, it indicates who is going to do what for what period.
Very good. Who does what? So, in the language of project, we would say those what are tasks, or maybe activities. Right? When is obvious, and then who is obvious. But it's also, especially more in the business world, they're called resources. Resources are the people you need, who is going to do what. And in the first step of a project, we know is there is something you want to achieve, and you want to have the best chance of succeeding within the limited time, resources, other constraints that you have. Right? So a group of people want to achieve something, and you're like, well, how do we do this as easily as possible? Right? So then the first question is asked is, what is it you want to achieve? What is your objective? This we all know, right? So a project has an objective. And we say, for example, an objective might be
Train people becoming farmers. Train people to become lead farmers.
Lead farmers.
Okay, so lead farmers like models.
To become examples for others so you're trying to introduce. So what are they becoming models of? You train them to do what? What should they be doing?
Those are the farmers.
Say what? Best, so you want to introduce best farming practices. Why? To produce more. Why do you need to produce more? Why do you want to produce more?
You have to say you have to attend the project, then you have quality.
Quality or quantity? Because you said to produce more. Okay. So now notice, in these few questions, we have just started our causal diagram. What we just did is the beginning of a causal diagram. Right? So you said train farmers. Train farmers. And then we said, well, you're training them to do what? Why should they be trained? So they become lead farmers. Which will impact or there's an assumption that nobody says that if you have a few farmers who are doing something new and better, the other ones are going to learn as well. Right? So this will disseminate labor, disseminate practices to other farmers. Now these to adopt better farming practices which in turn leads to more output and higher quality. Now, even by themselves, so what? To produce more and higher quality. Why do we care?
Food security.
Food security. So this contributes and that contributes. Of course, other things also contribute to food security. For example, if you're growing higher quality, then maybe now you charge more money so that people need money to buy food, for example. Unless they're growing for themselves, in which case that's not a requirement. So you have to think about, in your context, what is it you're trying to achieve. So our objective would be what? Now that we have begun our causal diagram by simply asking a few questions. Why? 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 What is that going to do? What is that going to do? So you can remember the activities of the project, the things you would do. You asked if we're going to do a revision. This is kind of a revision. I hadn't planned for a revision. So the activities of a project team are the things you do. What is the thing you do here as a project team? What is the thing you do? Irene, what is the thing we are doing as a project team? Based on this diagram, which one is the thing we are doing? Guess. It's okay if you guess wrong. It's part of how we learn. Training farmers. What do you think? Yeah? Promoting sustainable farming. Can I give you the task to now go promote sustainable farming? Do you know what I want you to do? Is it clear to you what I want you to do? If I say go promote sustainable farming. Yeah? What will you do?
I will train the farmers to measure when they are about to engage in farming, to measure the importance of farming and the time for it.
Okay, you're going to train them. So the thing you're going to do is train. Promotion has many things we could do. We could go and give a workshop or a seminar. We could print books and distribute books to the farmers. We could provide, let's say, sustainable farming requires, I don't know, a special seed. You could be asked to promote sustainable farming, so I'm going to give you seeds, these special seeds. Right? So there's many things you can do that you might think is promoting sustainable farming, but I'm thinking something else. Frederick is thinking something else. So we want to be specific. What are you going to actually do that we think will promote sustainable farming? Promoting sustainable farming is a higher level objective. So I'm saying it is a good objective. You want to promote sustainable farming, but if you're going to make a project, you have to break it down into small things that I can tell someone today. Go to this place and do this thing. And the person is very clear on, okay, got it. I'm going to run a training, I'm going to collect the materials, I'm going to deliver this, I'm going to record data. What is the task you want me to do as part of the project? The tasks have to be very small, like for today, what are you doing today as a task? An activity is even bigger than a task. Right? Train farmers. What are tasks? You have to choose the content. If you're going to train them, what are you going to train? Are you going to train them on how to plant, or how to choose things, or how to control pests in a more sustainable way? Are you going to train them on how to do irrigation? irrigation practices better? What do you want to train them to do? You have to choose your content. Okay, that might take you a day, a few days. That's the more specific task. Then we have to with content, we have to decide on a time and venue. Where and when will we hold the training? Someone has to invite people, the farmers, to come to the training, and then deliver the training. So these are tasks under this activity. Right. Now my project could be this. This is my entire project, is to train farmers, and then there are some tasks. Or maybe my project has some other parts to it. There are some other activities we're going to do. So besides training farmers, maybe we're going to establish what's it called? Seed nurseries, or experimental plots, where they can use these new practices and see how it works. So that would be another activity. We have an activity here, which is experimental plots, which will help lead to adopting better practices. Because now you can take the farmers and show them these plots. Okay. Now, establishing an experimental plot also has a set of tasks. You have to find land, you have to get whatever seeds you're going to plant, if you need any equipment, someone has to go and plow, and then plant, and then organize farmers to show them. Right? There's many tasks that have to be done today, tomorrow, next week, next month. All of the tasks you have to write. So now we see an activity contains tasks. Right? And these activities both belong to this objective, which is improve food security. So what we want to achieve is improving food security. But that's not something that you can do directly. I can't tell someone, go improve food security. What do you actually want me to do? You want me to go buy food and give it to them? That's improving food security. No. I want you to buy food. I want you to help them grow their food. Okay, you want me to go work with them in the field? No. I want you to train them to work with them. Okay. You see, if we're not clear, then what I'm thinking and what you're thinking are not the same. And that's when projects go not the way you want. So the value of the plan is to make very, very clear what we mean when we say promote sustainable agriculture, improve food security. What are you thinking? What are you thinking? Let's all discuss. Let's write it down. Oh, you mean this? Okay, let's add that. But then if we do this, then we need to train people. Or we need this. That's true. Okay, we have to add that as well. You grow your plan organically. A plan doesn't just get written down, I sit down, finish. That's not how plans get made. Plans get made through discussion. And starting one thing and then going, but then what about this? That's true. Let's add that. Okay, we don't need that part anymore. You see? Alright. Any questions about so far? Alright. So we started with an idea of what a project would be, train farmers. We started asking ourselves, why? Why am I training farmers? What will that do? It will lead to lead farmers. Why do we want lead farmers? Well, because they've done improved things for other farmers. They become examples. Okay. And what are they becoming better at? Well, that's better farming practices. Notice, you could have a different project that these parts are the same, let's say, but it's not about better farming practices. Maybe it's about better land management practices, environmental practices, right? then the objective is not improve food security. The objective would be improved or reduced environmental degradation. More forests, more trees. We want to teach them to plant trees around their land. That's a different project, right? It has a different objective. But it might use a similar approach, similar kinds of activities. You're still training farmers, except you're training them in something else, because you have a different objective. So we ask ourselves why, what is it we're thinking? We're thinking this, we can lead to that, and ultimately, okay, so we want to improve food security. And then you could ask everybody in the room, all the stakeholders, is improving food security what we want? And everybody might say, yes, that's what we want. Or somebody might say, wait, what about environmental degradation? You say, well, do we also want to make that an objective? Then we can add that part of the training is also about environmental practices. Or we say, for this project, let's keep it as food security, we'll do another project for the environment. And then you can say, okay, I guess that makes sense because we have to start small. And then there is clarity. That person isn't going to come 6 months later and say, guys, how come we're not working on environmental things? We say, well, because we agree. Right? Make sense? So we do that, then we say, all right, these are the activities, or the things we actually do. So I'm kind of now pivoting to, this is our causal diagram, small one. And now we make it into a logical diagram. So the logical diagram has activities. So we've identified these are the things we do, experimental plots and farmer training. The outputs will be, we have lead farmers, we have experimental plots. So establishing it is the activity. The output is there is one or more. And then after the outputs, so remember, so we have in the logical diagram, right, there are 5 columns. Inputs, activities, outputs. What's the next one?
Effects.
And the last one? Impact. So here the effect would be what? So to be clear, the output is trained farmers and plots. That's it, right? These are our outputs. What is the effect that comes from the output? Notice, there isn't always a single right answer. But in this case, this would be a good way to frame what is the effect that as a result of the activities we do and the outputs, which we control, right? Having trained farmers is the thing we can, either I train them or I don't, or I train more or less. So I control how many trained farmers. How many experimental plots depends on how many we establish. We control that as a project team. The adoption of better farming practices, we don't directly control. We're not going to every single farmer saying you should do this. Because our logic is we will train a few lead farmers, and we hope, we assume, they will then teach others. And it will result in widespread adoption of better farming practices over time. But we don't directly control that. That would be a different product. If you want to go and train every farmer, you can. And the output will be every farmer is trained in better practices. But in our case, we're training a few, and they will, we assume, spread it to others, so that overall in the whole region, whatever size the region is, there will be better farming practices. So that will be the effect. Now, what will be the impact? What impact are we working towards or hoping to have? Say really about it. Higher quality, this one? Higher quality output? Who thinks higher quality output is an impact? Any other guesses?
And the point was,
Say again.
I think I go for the same.
Same one? Okay.
Communities and families having better funding ideas.
Families and communities having better farming ideas. Do you think that's kind of similar to this? Adopting better farming practices? Or are you thinking something different?
Like communities, what's trending? Many people will have like knowledge. So I think it's the same.
Okay. Improve food security. This is our impact. It's a very high level thing that our project alone is not going to fundamentally change, but it contributes to that impact we want to have in that society. And so you can imagine other organizations, government agencies, whoever, groups of people, communities, also doing things, projects, initiatives, whatever, that are also contributing to improve food security. So in your mind, you can imagine everything we wrote, other people are doing other things that are also pointing to improve food security. So you are one part of a larger ecosystem of efforts to improve food security. That's the impact we're aiming for. We could also say these are also effects, actually. So just because there's an arrow from one to the other in a causal diagram doesn't mean it has to be in a different category, right? Because the causal diagram, the chain can be very long. It's not just 5 things in a row. Then it's easy with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 input activity, right? But in general, a causal diagram can be quite big, have many things, and arrows, the chains can be 10 and 12 things long. So you have to pull out which parts go under what category. And sometimes many things go under the same category. So here, adopting better farming practices, this is an increase in knowledge and capacity in people. As our friends have done. As communities and families, when we say adopting, we mean people adopt better farming practices, so they're actually using it. As a result, we also expect that an effect of this whole project is that their farming output will be greater quantity and greater quality. Okay. Now, the reason we started this was to get that this is we said the whole idea of this causal diagrams and logical diagrams. Do you want to review indicators? Or yes? Anyone else? Okay. Okay. Let's review indicators. So what is an indicator? What do we remember about indicator? Irene? Any thoughts? What is an indicator? You're stuck there. Okay, that's fine. Being stuck is a good place to be. Because it means, oh, there's something for me to learn. And I know I have something, there's something I want to learn. I'm stuck. So what do I need to get unstuck? So what do you need to get unstuck? Where are you stuck exactly? You're stuck at what is an indicator? Okay. Can anybody help Irene? What is an indicator? Because when you're stuck, then you ask for help. So anybody else, what is an indicator?
like a training was conducted is an indicator. Training is one of the indicators.
Trainings would be an indicator. Okay, there's something, maybe we can make it a bit theoretical. So what is an indicator? It is a quantity we measure to know whether trainings have happened, for example. let me remind us. So, an indicator is a quantity, a thing you can measure. Okay? That tells you, so it indicates. To indicate is to point to something. It's another synonym, right? When you indicate, you say, go that way. So an indicator points to something. It is not the thing itself. Okay? Another. For example, the level of water in a cup. Is that a good indicator? Or we measure temperature. How do we measure temperature? Anybody know? With a thermometer. Right. What does a thermometer look like? Sort of bulb thermometers. Do you know these? Everybody seen one? Red inside. Do you know what the liquid inside is called?
What the units of temperature.
For temperature. Temperature. So you have 0, 100, 50, and like that. So there's a liquid inside, and the liquid gets fills more space when it gets hot, and less space when it gets cold. So if it's cold, the liquid is only full here. If it's hot, the liquid is full till there. And then you read what is the level of liquid, and that's a number. Now, is the level of liquid itself temperature? No. It's the level of liquid. It's the volume of liquid. That's the actual thing we're measuring. We're not directly measuring temperature. What we're measuring is the effect of temperature on this liquid. When the temperature goes up, the liquid goes up. So what I measure is the height of the liquid. And then I say, when the liquid is this height, it is also this temperature around it. It is at this height because of that temperature. So here I say it's at 50, for example, degrees. So this thermometer, or more specifically, the thermometer is an instrument, is a tool. The indicator is the height of liquid in the thermometer. Height of a liquid is not temperature, it's height. Right? It's a different thing from temperature. Height is in centimeters and millimeters, not in degrees. But we know that height relates to temperature. That temperature changes the height of this thing. So we use this to indicate the temperature. Okay? Right. So then, instead of making everybody go, well, it's 3.25 centimeters, that means it's, what temperature is that? We convert already. They make the thermometer and they calibrate it to say, I have measured that when it's here, that is when the temperature outside is 45 degrees. So I will write here 45 degrees to help you make that reading. So, an indicator is something that tells you about something else. So in our case, what we want, for example, is we want a way to measure what we are doing. That's essentially what indicators are. A way to measure what we are doing and the effects of what we are doing. So some indicators are about the process. Maybe it's not real clear about the numbers. So this is just an example of a concept of an indicator. Obviously our projects are not about thermometers. But our projects are about, if you remember our logical diagram, has 5 things. 3 of them are process, and 2 of them are about results. So this is the inputs, in, outputs, activities, which turn inputs into outputs. And then we said effects and impacts. what we are interested in is results, right? This is our project. Once the project ends, all this goes away. This stops. It doesn't go away, but it stops. We stop the activities, which means we stop creating more output. Whatever output we did by the end of the project, we stop. That's it. That's the output you have. So imagine the factory is baking bread. You have grain and water coming in. You're baking it. Out comes bread. When the factory closes, whatever bread you bake, that's the bread you have. Finished. Right? So your input, you do something with it, you get an output. At the end, when you close, you're left with whatever output you made. So in our case, maybe you train this many farmers. Right? So there's things you want to measure about process. For example, how much grain, let me use my example of the bread factory, how much grain came in? How many loaves of bread did we bake? How many hours of work did people put in? What else? The quality of the bread. Were the loaves all the same size? How many loaves were bigger than this, smaller than the weight of the bread? Right? So there's different things we could measure about the bread. Was the nutritional value of the loaves of bread this much or this much or this much? So many things we can measure, and we don't want to measure everything. We want to measure as little as possible, because measuring takes effort and time. It's not free to measure things, right? Someone has to go and collect data, analyze, come back and tell you this is the number, and then the number has to be useful to you. If it's not really going to be, oh, that's interesting, great. Why did you go and measure it? That's useless. So you could measure the temperature in the factory. Is that useful? No. You could measure it, but it's not useful. So process is things, indicators of the work we are doing. How much work are we doing? So now let's use our training example. How many trainings have we held? How many people came to those trainings? How many people completed the training? How many people came? How many people completed? Not necessarily the same thing. Maybe 100 people came, but only 60 people completed. Okay. So are you interested in the 100 or are you interested in the 60? What is your measure? And you can think of, well, it depends on what you want to know. But all of these are measures of your operation as a project, just like the operation of the business. There's things you want to know about how are we, the activities that we're doing. But at the end of the day, you're interested in, are we having an impact? Are we making an impact? Is there an effect from all this work? Yes, I baked all these loaves of bread, but then they sat there and went moldy. Nobody ate them. Right? So then I want to measure how many people were saved from starvation thanks to these loaves of bread. That's the result that I want. I want people to eat. So it's fine to measure how I'm making bread, how fast. It used to take 3 days to bake a loaf of bread, now it only takes 1 day. That's an improvement in our process, that's great. But are people eating the bread? If not, then we have to think more. So those now become results. We want indicators of results. Are people eating? Are they gaining weight? If they're eating more, they should be gaining weight, for example. Do you want to measure their weight? Do you want to measure how many meals a day they have? Do you want to measure what would help you to understand, are we having the results we hope for? So, any thoughts? What could be some indicators now for our example project around farming practices?
Now on process indicators, that is?
Either one, process indicators, or do you want to start with process indicators? They're usually easier. So an indicator, remember, is something you can measure. It will have a number when you start, and you have a target, or you hope the project will bring that number from here to here. Sometimes the number should be going up, sometimes the number should be going down. So if you're measuring, for example, how many people are contracting this disease, I hope my project reduces that number. There were 100,000 who got cholera. After my project, only 20,000 got cholera. That's good. So the number might be, you might want it to go up, you might want it to go down. It depends on what the indicator is and what your project is about. But it's a thing that you can measure. It has a number, and you want the number to change, either up or down. That's an indicator. An indicator is always something you measure. If you can't get the number, then that's not an indicator. So there's 5 of us. I think every one of us can think of at least one indicator. Maybe take a minute and think about it. Let's start with process indicators. So think of an indicator where there's input activities or outputs, or this. So inputs, activities, and outputs means we're thinking about which parts of this diagram? These ones, to the left. This is now, if you're thinking in terms of this logical diagram structure, if I should move these around easily, these are all process-related things. This one is actually in the middle. And then these are results and things. So if we want to think of process indicators, we're thinking about this.
Okay, so we say maybe 50 farmers rent. Yes. And then on the output, we say 50, not 50, maybe they reduce the number, or I'll say the 3 farmers produced.
Okay, who thinks that's a good example of an indicator?
I think so, for example, there are some figures in each.
Okay, there are numbers in it. That's a good sign. Let's make now our understanding a little more neat. So there is a thing where I can give a number. So when I said temperature is an indicator, level of liquid in the thermometer, that is an indicator, the level of liquid. Is there a number in that? No. What is the number is the particular value of the indicator. So 50 is the value of the indicator. And then there's a question, when you start, in the middle, at the end. So yes, your indicator